You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caparelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies just like yours. Well, welcome back, strategy creators. Another great episode coming at you here very shortly. Want to first give a quick shout out to the sponsor of our show, Strategy Generation Company, who I also work for and I also founded, but is the reason behind this show, in fact. So if you go out to strategygeneration.com, you'll see all of the different tools and resources that are available through us. At that website, we offer workshops and training and all kinds of other things, including this show, of course, and other free resources if you go out to that website and check it out. So please go out there, subscribe to our mailing list. You'll see a link to be able to do that. You can subscribe to our Strategy Creators newsletter, which we try and release at least every month. So please go out and hopefully you'll check that out and continue to make this show possible. So with that said, you know that last 3 episodes we were addressing career questions, which we thought were interesting. So we did a bit of a 3-part series on that. But now we're back to our regular format, answering regular old strategy questions. So we're going to get right to this week's question, which is, Dear Strategy, how do I best operationalize the jobs to be done framework in everyday strategy or product management work? Okay. So first of all, we have to define for people what the jobs to be done framework is. Some of you may be familiar with that term, some may not. So I'll go ahead and kind of just clarify that just a little bit. So back in 1997, Harvard business professor Clay Christensen, who's still very active today, he wrote a book called The Innovator's Dilemma, which is pretty popular around innovation circles and things of that nature. And basically what he did was he kind of introduced the theory of disruption. So a lot of times you hear about disruptive innovation, and that's the most successful type of innovation that you could have. That kind of came into play in that book. Somewhere down the road later, he started talking about this theory of jobs to be done. I'm not completely sure that he is the person that coined that phrase. However, I can say that he probably was the one that popularized it. And there's a pretty famous story that he talks about, which is his milkshake story, that really kind of solidifies this in the business culture, right? And what this basically is he tells a story of how he was hired by a big fast food chain to go and try and understand how they can sell more milkshakes, right? And so one of the first things that you want to do when you're going to be hired for something like that is try and understand why people are buying milkshakes or not buying milkshakes, right? So they did some good old-fashioned observation work, which we've talked about a lot of times on this show, and started to find out some pretty surprising data, which was that a lot of people were buying milkshakes in the morning, right? And they were buying milkshakes more specifically in the morning for their morning commute, which was a really interesting dynamic. And most of us think about milkshakes. We think about milkshakes as some form of dessert, right? I myself would never think about having a milkshake anywhere before 7 o'clock at night or anywhere after the age of 40, as it turns out. But I actually have broken that rule many, many times. But the point of the matter is, we think about it as dessert for the most part. But then here they come out and they see in this observation trip that nearly half the milkshakes for the day are sold in this morning window. What's going on there? So in probing deeper, they tried to find out why people were actually buying milkshakes. And the way that they framed the question was, what job are you hiring the milkshake to do for you? And that's kind of an interesting way to approach it, because as it turns out, what they were looking for was something that they can have to occupy their entire boring commute, something that fills their bellies, and something that lasts for the entire commute, right? And so all 3 of those kind of needs needed to be met, and a milkshake met all of them. They weren't thinking about health, apparently. They weren't thinking about the fact that they probably shouldn't be drinking milkshakes or anything with 1,000+ calories at that time of day, but they were thinking about what the milkshake needed to do for them, right? And it met those at least 3 basic criteria. So then you can think in terms of, well, if you were going to hire another product to do those jobs for you, are there other products that can do those jobs as effectively? So think about something healthier, right? Or like a banana. Well, no, a banana doesn't fulfill those same needs because it's difficult to eat with one hand, right? it doesn't last very long, and it really doesn't fill you up very well, right? You think about a donut or a breakfast sandwich or something else like that. Well, that goes pretty quickly as well. Again, difficult to eat. Maybe it fills you up, but it doesn't meet all the criteria. So that's why this kind of jobs to be done could be really effective, is to say, what are you actually hiring a product to do, and then try and have a product that actually satisfies those needs in the most effective way possible. Now, with that definition out of the way, and I love it, by the way, I do love that theory. I love that story. I love his writing. So I will say that really, really great stuff all around. But what I'm not a huge fan of is when we take a singular framework or a singular theory and we try and turn it into the buzzword du jour and we pattern our careers after it, right? Jobs to be done framework is a great framework. And there are many, many, many great frameworks out there. On this show before, we've talked about blue ocean strategy. You hear of Lean Six Sigma. You hear about Lean Office, right? You hear about, Lean Startup is another one that's out there a lot. And there's so many other ones, right? And I would just say that all of those things, all those theories, all those books, all those frameworks, including the one that we have through Strategy Generation Company, they're all tools. They're tools in your toolkit, right? And you shouldn't say that you're going to, pattern a job around one specific tool, because there are a number of different ways to get to that. Just to give you an example of this jobs to be done in action, and back to this milkshake story, I've told the story 100 times, right? And I love it. I'm a big fan of it. But when you really dig deeper on this jobs to be done framework in that particular story, you can blow some holes in it, right? I mean, for example, as many times as I heard that story and as many times as I've told that story, I have yet to meet a person who buys a milkshake at 8:30 in the morning, ever. I've yet to meet one. And I live in the New York's tri-state area, right? I was a commuter for many, many years. I know everybody around me. Every single neighbor I have practically is a commuter that commutes an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours a day to work, some by car, some by train. Nobody that I know has ever, hired a milkshake to do that job. So, I mean, I'm not disputing that is a valid, research study that was done. And so it's a real story, I'm sure, but it doesn't apply universally. And I think one of the reasons that it might not apply universally is because when you think about hiring a product to do a job, even though a milkshake did that job really, really well, there are other factors outside of the jobs to be done that you need to take into consideration, like health, or feeling guilty about, glomming down 1,200 calories before the workday starts. Those are things that have to be considered on top of the jobs to be done framework. And so, that's why I say that something like that is a tool in your toolbox, but temper it with other theories and other ways to get information as well. That's how you use these things, right? And I can say that about my frameworks and tools as well. I've written books, and I've the company that we talked about in the beginning of the show, and we have tools and resources and templates and all those things. And I always caution people, don't take any of this as religion, right? Thinking that you're going to fill out these templates and everything's going to magically come to you. They're tools, and you may have to, play around with different tools until you find the right one for the right situation that meets what you're trying to do. And jobs to be done, in my opinion, at least, falls into that same exact category. So my caution flag in this question, of course, is when you're thinking about operationalizing one specific tool, I would say do it in conjunction with any number of different tools. The thing that you really want to do is look at the big picture of what you're trying to accomplish, right? And if you're in a strategy role, the big picture, like we've talked about many times on this show, is you're trying to analyze your situation, you're trying to plan for the future, and you're trying to execute. Those are kind of the three phases of strategy development work. And you're going to have any number of tools and different theories that can help you with all of those different steps. So find out where jobs to be done fits within those things. And I would tell you, in my world, it really fits in the area of analyzing the market needs, right? Which is one part of the analysis phase. And use that in conjunction with other tools that also help you to do that same thing. And take all of those things, triangulate them together, and see what information comes from that. You'll ultimately develop your own process for gathering market needs, which might encompass a little bit of the jobs to be done and a little bit of other frameworks and maybe a little bit of your own intuition. And all of that is the way that you should approach your job, right? Use this as a tool and come out with your own process that you feel works best for your product and for your business. So I hope that helps answer this a little bit. I've talked about this kind of thing on previous episodes as well. I'm not a big fan of just swallowing tools and making them the tool du jour, right? I really think you need to use them in conjunction with other things, find what works best for you. So hopefully that's the sentiment that we got across to you here on today's show as well. So we hope that you will engage with our program. Go out to dearstrategy.net. Dearstrategy.com works as well. Go on to the Ask a Question link and see if you have a question that you want to be submitted for the show. Really, really easy to do. And we get to just about all of them unless they're super repetitive or super irrelevant, which most of them are not. So we hope that you'll go and check us out there. Also, again, don't forget to go out and check out the website of Strategy Generation Company, which is strategygeneration.com. You're going to find a whole bunch of other resources and tools there as well. And you can go out and subscribe to our newsletter, which we'll release every month or thereabouts. So we hope you'll go take advantage of that as well. While you're thinking of all that stuff, don't forget to make time for the plan, and we'll see you back here on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.